Hey guys, it's Eddie, and today I am back with another movie review for you all. Now, today's movie was suggested to me by my good buddy Jessica, who knows full well just how much I adore this movie, and of course I said yes. So I'm doing it on this channel for you guys, and the movie we'll be reviewing today is Interview with the Vampire, directed by Neil Jordan and based on the novel of the same name by Anne Rice. So before we delve into the reviewing of the movie, I just first of all wanted to advise anyone who hadn't done so already to read the Vampire Chronicles series of books by Anne Rice, which this movie is based off. So I just think if you are looking maybe for some new reading material, you're a fan of vampire novels in general, I think these are these sort of classic vampire books, and they are just absolutely brilliant. I would highly recommend them to anyone who is a fan of that sort of supernatural genre. And yeah, I just wanted to tell anyone who hasn't to give them a try. So without further ado, let's get reviewing the movie. Now, the movie is based around the sort of autobiographical trajectory of the life of our main vampire called Louie, who is played by Brad Pitt. And it's kind of like his story of guilt and misery that comes with him being born to darkness, as he calls it. Because he really struggles with the concept of taking another person's life, but that is part and parcel of being a vampire. And his maker and his companion for a good chunk of the movie, Lestat, who is played fabulously by Tom Cruise, in my opinion, tries to convince him that, you know, you've got to get over this. You know, he is the two really contrast with each other because Lestat really embraces the life of the vampire. He's quite he's playful with his food, he enjoys the catch, he enjoys the hunt, and he totally embraces it. But like Louis really struggles with it, and that dynamic that was so prominent in the book really comes through in the film. So total credit to Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise for that. But I think Tom Cruise as Lestat really stands out as, you know, the top performance in this movie for me, because it's just the perfect portrayal. He has that sort of air and grace about him that is really careless about, you know, taking people's lives for his own gain. He's funny and playful and quite twisted in a way, but he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. I think he captures the character, which was so precious to Anne Rice and is so precious to me. He's one of my favourite fictional characters of all time, actually. He really captures the character really well and brings him to life on the screen. I know that a lot of people were dubious initially about him playing Lestat, but yeah, I think he totally embraced the character and he was brilliant. Now, Brad Pitt as Louis, sometimes I feel like his performance is kind of a bit flat or kind of gets a little bit lost. You know, Louis is definitely a difficult part to play because he has this inner struggle, this inner fight about him that is really quite sad and melancholy, and I think Brad Pitt really conveys that well. But I think, you know, next to characters so sort of feisty and perhaps complex as Claudia, played by Kirsten Dunst, and Lestat, obviously, by Cruise, I think sometimes his portrayal and his skill of acting gets a little bit lost in the movie, but I do think that his portrayal of Louis fits really well in the movie and rests with the whole melancholy tone of his life. So yeah, I think it was good. Now, Armand, played by Antonio Banderas. Now, Armand is the kind of mysterious, wise, kind of enigma of a vampire that we meet when Louis moves to Paris a lot later in the movie. And I think because of the way he's portrayed in the book, I think, if I remember rightly, Armand is, he's very young. He's like a 15-something-year-old boy. He's, got red hair and he's Russian. Now, we all know that that's not Antonio Banderas, but I think despite the large leap and change from book to screen, I think in this movie alone, without considering the book, the acting and portrayal by Banderas works well. It's acted well. I mean, he really gets on board with the whole like sultry, sensual element of his character, and he has great chemistry with Brad Pitt, and I think that's really necessary to the plot and to the film. Yeah, a weird choice, but I think if we sort of take it as the film on face value, it works well. Let's just leave that there. Now, Claudia, played by Kirsten Dunst, I think she is so great. I mean, she's Lestat and Louis' sort of little daughter, and I know in the book she's a lot younger. I think she's 5 or 6, but in the movie, obviously she's a little bit older than that, but not by that much. I think she's got she's able, for someone very young filming that movie at the time, she's able to portray at first the sort of childishness, the naivety, but then the way her character progresses, you sort of see her growing older in the mind. She really doesn't want to be this young girl anymore, but she's trapped, and she's really able to convey this sort of sad wisdom behind her eyes for such a young face. And I think, yeah, for such for how old she was filming this, Kirsten Dunst did really well acting this part. Yeah, I think she was great, and her sort of feisty little angry outbursts are brilliant. She holds up really well with her older established co-stars. So yeah, I thought that the score, the soundtrack, was really beautiful. I think it fit really well with the sort of sadness and loneliness that comes with the life of a vampire, and that the movie is touching on a lot. It's very haunting and beautiful, and it slots in well with the really gorgeous direction by Neil Jordan. Those shots of harbours and boats, and like in the veil of darkness that is what the vampires must travel under, of course, because they're sort of like confined to nighttime wanderings. I think there's also some really gorgeous costume and set design, because we start off, of course, in I think it's the 1700s, and then we start moving across the decades to modern day. And I think the set and the costume design are able to portray those changing time periods really well. You recognise them immediately from the sort of heavily embroidered jackets and coats that Lestat and Louie are wearing at the beginning, to the top hat and tails later on in the movie when we move to the sort of the 19th century, and then to Louis' sort of modern day, not modern for now, but for the 90s, that sort of like modern day attire, while still capturing the elements of the character. And I think, yeah, kudos to the costume design for Interview with the Vampire, and the set design also, because I think those sort of shots of ships and the great ornate houses that Lestat and Louis sort of live in, and the streets of Paris, the set is absolutely fantastic, and it really transports you to that place and that time. It's great. Now, one thing I will say about this movie is that it's got a fair amount of blood and gore. I won't really say gore, but there is a fair amount of violence in it, but it's about vampires, so, you know, you might, you know, expect that really. But I would just want to warn people about that if they're a little bit squeamish. And also there's some nudity. You know, these vampires, as I said, it's a very sensual vampire story, and these vampires do like to play with their food before they eat it, shall we say. So yeah, just gonna warn people about that. But no, I think this movie is really, really great. I think the actors capture the characters, which are so well crafted by Anne Rice, really, really well. I love the characters myself, and I really think they lift this movie, where at times it could sort of fail a little bit, because it is hard to bring such a great story to screen. Sometimes parts of the movie feel a little bit clunky, a little bit kind of flat, as I said, but I don't think that really affects the whole thing. I think overall it's really good. I mean, it might not be to some people's taste. I think perhaps the best thing to do is to try the books first and then see and then to try the movie, because I do think maybe it might not be for everyone, shall we say, but personally I think it's a great movie. I think it's a very beautiful movie, and if I had to give it a rating, I would probably give it like 4 out of 5 stars. It's not a perfect movie. I don't think you can call any movie perfect. It has its problems, but overall I think the characters and the actors and the story really it really shines. Some people might say it hasn't got much of a story because it's just like Louie's life, but I think the sort of vibrancy of the characters turn it into a fantastic story. But that's just my opinion, you guys. If you disagree, that's absolutely fine. If you wish to see me review another movie of your choice, please just leave a suggestion in the comments below, and I will of course try to do my best. But that is my take on Interview with the Vampire. I hope you enjoyed. A cheeky like and a subscribe always helps out, but that is totally up to you, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!